in on primarily 1, 2, 3 ideas. Three ideas that we could focus on and reflect on, and making Purim more relevant into our daily lives. So the first thing is, if we stop and think about it for a minute, right? How do we sum up our holidays, and especially Purim? Our Jewish holidays are: they try to kill us, we won, let's eat. Right? That's how our Jewish holidays are usually made up of. Right? They wanted to kill us, we won, boom. Right? Let's eat. And Purim is no different. Right? Quick overview. Right? Achashverosh allowed Haman to implement his decree to wipe out the Jewish people. What happened in the end? Mordechai and Esther convinced the king to change his mind, and the Jewish people win. They win the war, and they're saved. And we have a festive day of dressing up, giving Mislach Manos, a Purim Suda, right, and the rest. So the question is, right, what are some important lessons that we can learn from? So there's a very striking resemblance to the Purim story and to our generation, especially our generation. Think about it. The Purim story starts off, right? The Purim story starts off right about 70 years after the destruction of the temple. So who's hanging out in Persia, right? And the majority of the Jewish people were living in Persia at the time. Who's hanging out there? The Jewish people, about 90%. Also, maybe there's some survivors from the destruction, like Mordechai, right, and some elder statesmen that are survivors from the destruction of the temple, of the Beis Hamikdash, right? There's children of survivors. There's grandchildren of survivors. There might even be great-grandchildren of survivors, right? And then there's a trickle of people that actually lived in Persia before the destruction of the temple, right? And they didn't go through. They were there to help out with infrastructure. Now, if we think about it, us in 2021 in America, North America primarily, also in England and other places, are very similar to this scenario. We're about 70 years after the Holocaust, right? We have some survivors, unfortunately not too many, but we have some survivors. And we have children of survivors. We have grandchildren of survivors. Some people have great-grandchildren of survivors. And then we have a trickle of some, a little more than a trickle, of people that lived here before the war, right? And grew up that way. Personally, my family was here before the war, right? And others, but a very similar atmosphere for the Jewish people in Persia, and they were. So there's a lot of similarities if we really stop to think about it. What we're going to learn now about the Purim story is the same scenario, same situation that the Jewish people were during the times of the Purim story. So let's focus on a couple of similar ideas. And that is, number one, the lesson number one is being a Jew rather than being then a Persian by us an American. What do I mean by that? God forbid, I don't mean to say that we shouldn't show loyalty. God forbid, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be patriotic and do our due diligence and live in the country and support it and show gratitude for the country that we live in. We say a blessing for the Medina, for the country in our prayers. What I mean to say is that bottom line, where's our loyalty? Bottom line, how do we identify ourselves? And as we know, the Talmud tells us a striking thing. The Talmud says like this: Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai, Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, the great Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, right? Hulag ba'Omer, right? Which is not too far away. We celebrated on the yard site, right? The day of memorial of Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. The great Rav Shimon Bar Yochai said, the fact that the Jews, right, the reason why the decree happened was because the Jewish people partook in the meal of Achashverosh's meal. What was the meal? What was Achashverosh's meal? Right? He made this huge party to glorify his kingship. Right? He made a 7-day party. Right? He invited everybody, all the nations, everybody to come. Right? It didn't make a difference if you were from what part of the country, what nationality, what religion. He invited everybody. Jews alike also. He invited everybody to come. And the rabbi said not to go. Rabbi said not to go. And the Jewish people, the majority of Jewish people went. And said Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, the great Shimon Bar Yochai, that because they partook in the Sudas HaChasperis, that was one of the causes, not the only, but one of the causes for why they were punished with the decree of Haman. Now, what was this so bad? We go to parties, we have office parties, we go to the White House, there's a Hanukkah lighting in the White House, right? There's a Pesach Seder, there's things, right? So what was so bad they partook in it? And on the contrary, the Talmud tells us that the Suda was Galat kosher, the best certification, right? It was kosher, no problem, perfect. What was so bad that they went? So I want to give two ideas. One idea is based on what we just said, identifying. Say the commentaries that Rav Shimon Bar Yochai means to say not because they went to the party, but they partook in the party means to say they enjoyed it. They felt that they were part of something. They felt like we made it. Oh, look, we Jews, we were invited. Also, we're part at, not only were we part of it, right? Look, they accommodated for us. They made sure that we had the best kosher meals, the best steak, the best wines and everything. That we could be our Judaism within the Persian power. Look, we're Persians, but we could still practice our Judaism. That sounds great. But say the commentaries that there's a flaw there. Because this shows that really underlining how they identify themselves, what did they want to connect themselves with, was their Persian culture. They happened to be Jewish. They happened to, that's how they grew up, that's what they're doing, they happen to be Jewish. But what did they identify themselves with? The Persian culture. And that was why the decree happened. Because said God, I need you to realize that you should never, ever feel and think that your Judaism is second, you are a Jew. And I gave you an opportunity, a time of tranquility where they allowed you to live, and if you don't mind muting yourself, right? They allowed you to live and to partake, and that's fine. But don't feel like, we made it. We're Persians, happen to practice Judaism. Don't ever feel that way. And therefore, he sent the decree, right? That is something that's extremely important. And as we started off the class, there's tremendous amount of similarities to our situation, right? We are living in a similar kind of situation. We're 70 years after destruction. We're mostly children or grandchildren or great-grandchildren of the destruction of Europe. There was the destruction of the temple. Right? And we feel like a sense of, okay, we're good. We're lawyers, we're doctors, we're politicians, right? We're all over the place, right? And we have even kosher food and stadiums, right? And all over. We could get certain stadiums, kosher hot dogs and everything. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but it gives us a false sense of, we're good here. We're Americans. We have to be patriotic and we have to be part of the country and we have to show gratitude. But we are Jews first. And that's an extremely important lesson that we have to remember, right, from this story. That's one lesson, number one. I want to talk about three lessons, not number one. Number one is we have to remind ourselves and realize that the decree came about, according to Shimon Bar Yochai, was because we lost our Jewish identity. Because we felt and thought that we made it. And they enjoyed and they partook by enjoying, meaning to say that you have to go to an office party, go to an office party. And not saying that you shouldn't partake in the but don't think, look, I'm part of the group. No, you're different. You're a Jew. And you have to do it to keep shalom, keep peace, and you could enjoy the good steak, but intellectually, we have to remember we are different. Go to a ball game to enjoy it, that's fine. But it's my team, it's me, it's not your team, right? And it's nothing, and it's not saying not to root for someone to feel that energy, but we are Jews first. And hopefully we should be able to stay, God should bless us to have tranquility in this exile. But unfortunately, we know that that's not always true. So we have to always remember it's an extremely important lesson. That's number one. Number two, lesson number two is called Emunat Chachamim. Emunas Chachamim. Trusting in the rabbis. Right? Trusting our rabbis, trusting our Torah knowledgeable rabbis. Now, how do we see this in the Purim story? We see this in two places, and it's mind-boggling if you think about it. Number one, what we just spoke about, the Achashverosh's party. Now, if we were in the same situation, and we've had situations, right? There's a major political party going on, right? The president invites everybody, right? Whatever it is, right? We feel we have to go. It's the right thing to do, right? For political, to show that we care, to show this, to show that, right? And sometimes, yes, we do, and we have rabbis that sometimes go, but at the same time, we have to make sure that it's kosher according to what the rabbis tell us. Imagine Achashverosh is making a party, as we said. The Jews, of course, we have to go. We have to show allegiance to Achashverosh. We have to show that we care. What do the rabbis tell them? No, don't go. They tell them not to go. And they say, rabbis, you're outdated. You don't know what you're talking about. This is just not your arena. If we have a question about if something's kosher, we'll come to you. If we have a question on, about the Eruv, we'll come to you. Right? If we have a halachic question about Shabbat, we'll come to you. But this is out of your purview. Right? This is not your thing, right? Politics, you don't know. This, I'm telling you, politically, this is the right thing to do. We have to go, right, to make sure that we stay within good favor of Achashverosh and the ministers. We have to do it. The rabbis told them not to go. They felt the rabbis didn't know enough regarding this. And Mordechai. Right? What do we find? What does it say by Mordechai? It says that Mordechai refused to kneel down. Right? Mordechai refused to kneel down. Right? He didn't kneel down. So think about it for a second. Right? Think about it for a second. Mordechai refused to kneel down. You know what the Talmud tells us? The Gemara says that the Jewish people, Knesset Yisrael, I mean the Jewish people as a whole, there was posts on Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp. Oh my gosh, you can't imagine. This Mordechai is killing the Jewish people. This Mordechai is being stiff-necked and stubborn and ultra-Orthodox and ultra-whatever, right? Because he doesn't want to bow down to Haman. Like, hello, Haman is second to the king. Haman is an egomaniac. We have to appease him. We have to show him, and we have to just bow down to him. Okay, so there's a little cross on him, even if there wasn't, right? Mordechai said, no, I'm not bowing. And he had good reasons to. The Talmud tells us he had good reasons to. But it says, the Talmud tells us that the Jewish people blamed Mordechai for Haman's wrath. It's your fault, Mordechai. Because you just were too good for yourself. You just couldn't control your thing, and you don't know politics, and you don't know how to deal with non-Jewish politicians and things. You just don't know what to do. And that we know is not true. On the contrary, right? Because Mordechai didn't bow down, right? And he wanted that night, and that's the night that Achashverosh is reading from the book, and then he started getting very weary, and he said, "Oh, I needed help, Mordechai." And Achashverosh, he came to kill him, and that's when the Hapachu happens, right? We see it 20/20 hindsight, and he held strong to what he believed. But again, the same idea. The Jewish people said, "What does Mordechai know about this stuff?" Right? We have a halachic question or whatever, we'll go to him, but what does he know about this stuff? What does he know about Paul? What does he know about parent? What does he know about anything that's not technical halacha? And the answer is because the Torah has all the wisdom in there. And someone that is steeped in Torah, right, there's all the wisdom in there. Yes, you have to do your due diligence and see what's going on, and then make sure that you know what the environment, out there, the what's going on out there, and the different people, different players. Mordechai knew quite well. He went to the Shar HaMelech every day. He was at the gate of the king all the time. So he knew. But in Torah, there's a knowledge of everything. God created the world through the Torah. All science and all everything, one could theoretically find it in the Torah. So not every rabbi has that level. But there's something called the Munat Chachamim, gives you this insight, a special way of viewing things when one is steeped in Torah, a new clarity of what is truly right and wrong, what truly has to be, how things should be dealt. That's called the Munat Chachamim, believing in our rabbis. And not just thinking that you can look it up online and put it on a WhatsApp group, ask a question, and then find some person on Facebook that said something and some book that says something else. And there's great books out there. But a lot of these books are just to make you be able to ask questions. Because you have to actually ask them, because every scenario is different. Every small little detail makes a difference. And a good rabbi will ask you about the small details. Because every small little detail makes a difference. That's called the Munat Chachamim, building our faith in our rabbis. And that's another thing that if you think about it, living at the time, you would say, what is wrong with these rabbis? What's wrong? Not going to Achashverosh's party, not Mordechai not bowing down. But we see 2020 hindsight, we see that no, on the contrary, we have to trust our rabbis, right? Competent rabbi. We have to trust our rabbis because there's ingrained learning Torah builds the mind in a different way to be able to see things differently, opens up our eyes in a different way to allow to reflect and give a new insight. Right? It's called Das Torah. The Das, the knowledge of the Torah, gives you a new perspective, a new way of seeing something. Just want to touch upon, since we're talking about Mordechai not refusing to bow down, I want to touch upon one more point with Mordechai not bowing down. Right? And the commentaries say, and this has to do what we spoke about beforehand, and I apologize, I meant to add this in, right, with point number one. Every generation we have people like Haman, not to the extreme, right? There will always be people who will belittle your desire to be better, right, and to live on a higher spiritual level. And there will always be people that mock you. There will always be people that stand away from the truth, right? And will try to belittle Israel and to try to belittle our Judaism, right? And try to say, well, it's fine what we're doing. I'm good. I'm doing a little here. There will always be people like that. Not to the extreme of Haman, want to wipe us out. Yes, we've had that. But that concept of Haman. And we all have to be like Mordechai. Not to crumble, to stand up strong for our faith, our Judaism of who we are. This is, again, back to the same concept of building our Jewish identity. One of the ideas of Mordechai, he realized he had to stand up for the Jewish identity because that was what brought on the decree of Haman. Because the Jewish people lacked their Jewish identity by going and enjoying, and not only enjoying, but partaking, means to say feeling that they're part of the Persian culture. So he had to stand up for the Jewish identity and say, I'm not going to do this. And I'm not going to bend to the pressure. So too, we all have to stand up. We have to have that inner strength and say, we're not going to bend to the pressure. We're going to be stronger, right? And be like Mordechai, right? And that's another lesson, back to lesson number one. So again, lesson number one is Jewish identity. We see it from the Purim story. That's what caused the decree. And we see it by Mordechai refraining from bowing down to be strong and to hold on to Jewish identity. That was part of the redemption of the decree. And lesson number two is Emunas Chachamim, our faith in our rabbis and in rabbinic authority of not only technical halakha of is it kosher or not kosher, is it Erev kosher or not, right? But in a broader scope of Jewish values, of how we value our relationship with society, how we value our relationship with other people, and in general, a Jewish knowledge of dealing with day-to-day activities that might not be technical halacha. And we see that again, because they didn't listen to the rabbis, even though it seemed like ludicrous to listen to them. Of course we have to go. And number two, Mordechai, right? They blamed Mordechai, but on the contrary, right? He was the one that was right because he was following his inner relationship with the Torah to follow that. Lesson number three, and the final lesson that I want to talk about today, so we're going to keep this short, right, is unity brings strength. Right? Unity brings strength. One of the themes of Purim, right, is unity. The different mitzvahs, if you think about it, are mitzvahs built around unity. Right? L'shlach manos. We go ahead and we give packages to other people. And we don't go ahead and collect. We go ahead and give. You might get something for someone else, but we go ahead and deliver packages to create unity. Achvas v'reus. That's what the Talmud says. Why? To bridge the gap. And it's brought down, and I think I might say this every year. I don't remember, but I think I try to say this every year. You should try to give it to someone also that you're not the best. Oh, look, who are we friendly with to give Mislach Manas? No. The purpose of Mislach Manas is to try to build that unity. So if there's someone that you're having a little struggle with, someone that you might not be major fight, but even if you are, on the contrary, make sure that you go ahead and give that person. Right, because that's the point. Look, I'm giving you a package. Let's build. Let's remember Purim. Let's not fight. Right, we're Jewish people. Right, there's other people that want to try to kill us. Right, and the packages, the food is to try to build that unity. Because there's nothing better than food that to bridge gaps. Right, we Jews are all into our food. Right, so that's number one. Number two, the Suda, also the meal to get together. The mitzvah of Suda's Purim is not to be by yourself. Right. Of course, if you're by yourself, that's fine. You fulfill your mitzvah, but you're supposed to be with other people. It's COVID era. It's different, right? But the mitzvah is to be together, to unite people together, to give to the poor, to help out other people, right? And to hear the Megillah is to sanctify the mitzvah, and to show the miracle. But why is Purim so intrinsically involved in the mitzvah of uniting? Is because what was Haman's what Haman went to Achashverosh and said, I want to create this decree. What was the thing that he used to convince Achashverosh? Says there is a nation that's spread and divided amongst everywhere. They're separated. Yes, Amechad Nifrad. Right? They're separated. They're divided. They can't get along. Right? No one's going to come to their aid. They can't even get along themselves. They have different opinions and different things, and there's inner bickering with each other and infighting. And that's what Haman used and realized that he has a power now to go ahead and attack the Jewish people. On a deeper level, it's not only what he used to convince Achashverosh, but it's why he felt bold to go ahead and attack the Jewish people. Because he saw that the Jewish people were not united together. And when we're not united together, we are weak. When we're not united together, that's when the enemies of the Jewish people have the strength to go ahead and fight against us. We see that in the Second Temple destruction. We see that throughout history. Unfortunately, when the inner bickering and fighting, and that's when the non-Jews have the strength, our enemies have the strength to go ahead and fight with us. So what did Esther do to make sure to fight this, to combat this? When she told Mordechai, yes, okay, I understand, this is my purpose, and I'm going to go in to speak to Achashverosh. But she said, Lech knos kol Yehudim, go gather all the Jewish people together. She said, she made sure to say, go gather them and tell them to fast for 3 days. The commentaries say, why don't you just tell the Jewish people to fast for 3 days? Why'd she have to say, go gather them? Esther was saying, Mordechai, you have to make sure that we have to fix the mistake. We have to go ahead and gather Jewish people, remind them that we have to come together. We have to come together as a community. We have to put aside our differences and our bickering and unite together. Knos, Knisa, Knesset, Beit Knesset, that's where it comes from, a place of gathering and uniting together. Like Knos Kol Yehudim, go gather all the Jewish people, and then we'll do something together. We'll fast. Right? We'll fast and we'll ask God for forgiveness. That is how we fight Haman's decree. Because when we're separated, they could fight against us. When we're united, when we're together, there's no one that could break us. Right? It reminds me of a parable, and I've said this in the past, but it's a great parable. Right? A father is on his deathbed. He calls his two kids, and he tells them to bring a string, and he says, okay, guys, pull it apart. They're looking at him, he's crazy. They pull it apart and it rips. He says, okay, go get another one. And twist the two together, pull it apart, it pulls. Another one, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Eventually, they put it together. They try to as hard as they can, and it doesn't rip apart. The father tells the two children, says, you guys are two separate people. You're both individuals. You're like the two strings. But if you stay separated, easy to pull you apart. But when you twine yourself together and you connect and you become one, no power in the world could separate us and break us apart. And that's one of the important lessons of the power of Purim. That's why the mitzvahs of Purim are designated in a way that it is all built upon uniting the Jewish people. Festive, joyous. It's not to be lowliness and that kind of festive, but a spiritual festiveness. As it says that, and I've said this many times, right, as it says that Purim, one can reach a higher level of spirituality than Yom Kippur. Purim, as you all are familiar, and that is because when we do this joyous and we recognize that we have to find our Jewish identity within the physical world. Right? We enjoy our physical. We're gonna have bounce heads, we're gonna have hot dog, we're gonna have food and costumes, but we recognize our Jewish identity. We don't bend to the powers of outside influences, right? And we believe in our rabbis, what they tell us we're gonna follow, and we unite together as a Jewish people. There's nothing more spiritual than that. And that's why Purim is the holiday. The rabbis tell us that it's going to survive even after the coming of the Mashiach. God willing to be speedy in our days. It says all the holidays will be nullified. We don't need them. But Purim will still be around. Why? It's a holiday of unity of the Jewish people. It's a holiday of Jewish identity. And it's a holiday of Emunat Chachamim, which transcends all physical thought and anything that's physical. So let's all come together. Let's have a joyous time and let's have a fun time. Right, this Purim, even with all the COVID restrictions, be safe out there. But let's have a good time. But remember that this is a joyous time of a spiritual Jewish time, a joyous time that's going to be based on a Jewish identity, not trying to copy the non-Jews and Halloween. Say, oh, it's a Jewish. No, it's not a Jewish Halloween. It's a Jewish holiday of spirituality. It's a Jewish holiday of, on the contrary, we're showing our Jewish identity. It's a Jewish holiday that we follow what the rabbis tell us. And it's a Jewish holiday when we give other people things and not take things from people, because we want to unite and connect together. Wishing everybody a beautiful day, right? And a happy, happy Purim.